Hey, this is Rod Cleef, and you are listening to the Mailbox Money Show with Bronson Hill.
All right, so I'm super excited for this interview. Jack Bosch is awesome. I am actually out of my normal, this is my virtual background, as you can see. I'm out of my normal, if you're watching this interview, out of my normal element. We actually got displaced through the fires in Pasadena, California. So I'm staying with family. And so, but anyway, really excited for this interview. It is going to be awesome because Jack is talking about land flipping. He is talking about the importance of having land. It would actually be great right now to have some land outside of LA somewhere so I could be able to go there and be able to have something set up. And so he talks about entitlements, how to do this, the larger pieces. It's not just flipping land, which is one way to do it, but also I find very interesting of having larger tracts of land, being able to divide them up into individual saleable ones and to do it with very little money down, which is always something I'm interested in looking at. So hopefully you'll really enjoy this interview. I found it to be very inspirational, and let's jump in here. All right, welcome to the Mailbox Money Show, Jack. Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you too. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Really excited to have you. We were just talking before we started. I know we're going to talk about land flipping. We're going to talk about different elements of land entitlement. And I was sharing, I have a friend who is looking, he's a very wealthy guy, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And he made a lot of money over the years doing land entitling, buying thousands of acres or a couple thousand acres and then basically splitting it off and doing things like that. And so I want to get into that as well. But why don't you give people a quick intro to yourself and kind of how you got to be doing what you're doing and the successful spot that you're in there?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, Jack Bosch. I'm originally from Germany, but as you can probably tell by my accent, you'll never get rid of that one. Came to this country in 1997, so about 28 years ago. 2002, I started in real estate investing because I was frustrated in my job. Had to do it part-time first because I was in the process of getting a green card. Got my green card in 2003. Became a citizen in 2014, so it took my while. It took a little time for that, but for other reasons, there's like some rules within Germany that you would lose the German citizenship if you become American, and I wanted to kind of keep my European citizenship. So I did that, but basically 2002 we started in real estate or in land investing, for the very simple reason that land, contrary to what so many people think, can be, if done the right way or certain ways, can actually be much simpler and much more passive and much more part-time than any other real estate industry method that I had seen at the time, and even to this day, I believe so. So what we focused on initially and for many years was simply finding owners that don't want their property anymore. There's 46 million pieces of land in the United States at any given time. 5% of them are willing to let go of their land because they don't need it anymore. They don't visit anymore. They're sick and tired of paying property taxes. And because it's land and because usually banks don't lend on land, it's usually owned free and clear. So it's just like an asset that sits there that they don't want anymore, and they're willing to give steep discounts, way steeper discounts than in the housing world. Because in the house world, you usually have a mortgage. You can't really sell it for less than a mortgage unless it's a short sale. You have a use for it, you live in it, and you have an emotional attachment to it. But in the land world, usually that's not the case. So typically we get 100 properties worth under $100,000, anywhere between like we get them for about 20 to 60 cents on the dollar. And properties between like $100,000 and $1 million, we usually get them between the 50 and 70 cents on the dollar, or 40 and 70 cents on the dollar. And then what we do is classic wholesaling. So you take a $300,000 property, put it under a contract for 150, mark it up to 200, sell it because it's still a bargain on the market, and make $50,000. Or take a $30,000 property, get under a contract for 4, sell it for 17, and make a $12,000 profit or $13,000 profit. And my wife and I have done over 5,000 of those deals. And we have, and also about 16 years ago, we started a coaching company, and we teach this now to other people too. And that has expanded into now, since then, obviously it has expanded into all kinds of different strategies in the land market, from simple, get a $20,000 property for $3,000, sell it for 15 and make 12 grand, to get it the same property, get it for 4, sell it for 20 with a 20% down payment. So basically you pay for it 4, you get 4 as a down payment, you have no money in the deal, and you get cash flow with no money in the deal. So cash flow deals all the way to taking down right now, for example, I'm working on a deal where I'm taking down a $1.7 million property under contract, and we're going to the full entitlement process. And once it's done, it's worth more than $5 million. That's
So
obviously a
let's-
completely different ball game than a quick
Yeah.
$20,000 6 weeks or 4 week kind of flip.
Let me slow you down for a minute here, Jack.
no.
We've got a lot of.
I'm sorry. I'm excited about this
They're
stuff.
really excited. I know you're really excited about it. So for someone listening, and our listeners are, we all different range. Some people are passive investors, some people are active, and so the active land flipping. And you kind of talked about this a bit, where you're going to buy, this is sometimes land that's could be in a metro, a lot of times it's outside of a metro area. It's just, somebody doesn't want the land, they're paying taxes on it. You reach out to them, and I've heard sometimes, you'll get a piece of land for a few grand or 10 grand or whatever it is, and then you'll ask the neighbors, hey, do you want to buy this? And then some of the neighbor want to buy it, and you'll just kind of basically flip it. And it's, sometimes, 500% profit or more on these type of things. Have you seen a change in the number of people doing this over the last 5 to 10 years? Or is it pretty, is it just been pretty constant? Has it been less? Is it I always think of things are great until all of a sudden everybody does it. And then it's just harder to do it,
Certainly. I mean, of course, yes. I mean, I've been teaching this for 16 years. We're the #1 coaching company in that space. So we have basically created our own competition to some degree. But that is 100% true. But when I started, there were probably 5 people in the entire country doing this, or perhaps 50, perhaps individual, in area, some guys with no internet presence that would just go buy some land, then sell it again and things like that. But at any kind of scale that I was aware of, it was about 5 companies.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, today we might have 1,500 companies that do this, or 1,500 people that do this. Well, we got 3,007 counties in the United States.
Yeah.
So yes, the competition has grown 100-fold, or whatever you want to call it, or 300-fold. But from what basis? From the basis of almost zero to a basis that is still ridiculously low. And I think it's going to take another 15 years before we get anywhere close to, and I don't think we'll ever get anywhere close to what the competition that's happening in the house market. Because I read estimates that there's 3 million people that have gone to any kind of house wholesaling, fix and flip kind of training.
Yeah. Wow.
There's only 107 million houses in this country. So there's only 33 houses for every investor, but there's something like 30,000 pieces of land for every land person that's doing this.
So let me ask you a couple questions on this, because I think I haven't done land flipping. I know people do it. I have a couple friends that have gotten into it as well. We have a mutual friend as well who's in the space, and I think I guess the concern is with land is that it doesn't really, it really is a liability if you hold it, right? If you're not doing something actively with it, if you don't have renters, if you're not developing, if you're not whatever. But so, I mean, does that ever happen where, let's say you buy a piece of land, or do you get it? It's kind of like wholesaling with homes, where you get it under contract and then within 30 days, you're trying to sell it to someone else. Is that kind of the structure of it? So you don't really actually hold it, or you don't get stuck holding the bag of okay, I got this property now. What am I going to do with this?
Yeah. So the classic active income strategy for land flipping is a holding time of 0 days. So it's literally our contracts allow us to have the property under contract for 6 months, which means for 6 months I can control the property, but the owner is still the owner, the seller is still the owner. So they're responsible for property taxes. They're responsible for liability kind of situations, which there's really none. I've never seen any kind of liability situation in 5,000 deals. I mean, possibly could somebody go on your land, trip, fall, get bitten by a rattlesnake and die, and then the family sues you? Yes, but I've just simply never seen it.
Right.
And plus, if they didn't have your permission to go on the land, it's trespassing. So therefore, they have very little ground to stand on, pun intended here. But the thing is that in the classic land wholesaling strategy or land flipping strategy, you put it under contract, you market it, and then recently there has been some changes in quite a few states where they don't allow wholesaling anymore. So what we have transitioned long time ago is to the model where we actually buy the property, but we resell it the same day in what we call a double closing, where we ideally use the buyer's money to fund the entire transaction. So you get a $50,000 deal on the contract for 10 grand. put it on the market for 30, then great. You put it on the market, it sells obviously very quickly. You line up, you have a purchase agreement with the seller, and you have a sale agreement with the buyer, and you get both of those to the title company, and the title company does the purchase and the sale transaction the same day, using only the buyer's money, because the buyer sends the 30 grand in plus closing costs. The title company sends 10 to the seller, 20 to you. You just made 20 grand without using.
What's the cost of title? Is it a couple grand, or is it $1,000? It just depends on the title.
Usually less than $2,000. It's between between about $1,000 and $1,500.
Okay,
so it's really not a whole lot.
So let's talk real quick. So this is the active strategy. If someone is like, a lot of our people are passive, is there a passive way to do this as well, or a more passive way than like, I've got to actually be pounding the phones and calling people and listing land and doing all this title stuff? Is there a way to be a little more passive in this?
There is. Now for the active business, I mean, like the answer is really kind of no, because if you're building this up as your additional business, you can build it up such that you sell to realtors, you hire services and companies now that can do all the marketing for you, but you still got to be a little bit involved. So we have students that spend 10 hours a week and make $150,000, $200,000 a year, but it's still active 10 hours a week, right? So it's not 100% passive. The more passive strategy is really more of a strategy that I also pursue, where for example, I own 25 lots, 5 acres each, in the outskirts, in the path of growth, outside of a bigger metro city, and the city is approaching. On one side, it's already half a mile away. On the other side, it's still another 3-4 miles away. So sometime in the next 5 to 15 years, that area is all going to be starting to build out. And all I'm doing is I'm keeping it. Now, I bought these properties for $3,700 on average. Right now, they're worth on average 40 grand. And I think in another 10 to 15 years, they're going to be worth 500 grand each. So that's 100% passive. But even there, the question comes in, well, now I have to pay property taxes for 15 years. Even there's tricks around it. Like, for example, we have a contract with a farmer in the area. We allow them to use our land for his cows to graze. And it's like all just open land. There's no fences and stuff like that. And so he lets his cows, I guess once a year, he lets his cows out there or something like that. And because of that, we got an agricultural exemption that dropped our property taxes to something like $7 a year. So the holding cost on these $25 is under $200.
What would the taxes have been? What would the taxes have been? It would have been like tens of thousands of dollars.
At this point, they're probably $1,000 a pop or so. So instead of paying 25 grand, I'm paying literally $200.
That's incredible. It's amazing how many hacks there are. And we talk about that a lot in our mastermind, the Wealth Forum. We have high net worth investors. And it's like, if you're investing in things the government incentivizes, right? If you find a way to, like, even the cows graze once a year, let the guy come in, it's like, that's an agricultural tax benefit that you get versus, there's also multifamily housing or real estate in general has a lot of tax breaks, as well as energy. Energy has some of the most crazy tax breaks where you're going to reduce ordinary income based on, investment amount and things like that, which is really something. Well, let's talk. I want to ask you as well. I find this really fascinating. So, like we talked about, I have a wealthy investor that I know who's older, is worth high net worth, super high net worth, has said, "Hey, I want to find land." He bought years ago, bought thousands of acres in Texas in the path of progress. Bought land like that, entitled it, whatever, and then just entitled different parts of it out. I know you guys are also working in that space as well. So talk to us about kind of that process of, let's say someone wants to buy a larger tract of land, kind of some stuff that you're doing. Hey, I want to hold it for a period of time, or just immediately start kind of selling off pieces. What would you say? I mean, is it a good time for that? And also, how does somebody go about doing something like that to buy a larger tract of land and start piecing it out?
Yeah, I think it's a great time of that, because there's actually several market movements that have put land into the bullseye for future as a new kind of, like, I sometimes say land is a new gold, or land is a new asset class that is going to get a lot more attention over time. Not in the term that the masses are going after, but smart money is starting to look at it and have for quite a while. And that is, first of all, with COVID, people have started to learn that they want space. Like during COVID, you couldn't go and you couldn't bring your kids to the local playground because of social distances. So people basically said like, screw that. They were perched in their apartments. They're like, I want space. So the RV market took off, and also the land market took off like crazy, and it has not slowed down. It's very simply more and more people have rethought their life. It's said that COVID has a bigger effect on the American public psyche than World War II. Because in World War II, everyone stayed in the country, and well, except for the soldiers, of course, but most of the people stayed in the country and they were able to move around. For COVID, everyone, the entire country, except for like a couple of states, were like perched in, and you couldn't go anywhere, and you had to stay almost like at home and work from home and be at home, and it changed the way people think about life, even, and so on. Yeah. And what happened is, sorry, it's a little extensive thing. What happens is people decided they wanted land, and a lot of people want to be living on more land. So there's a huge demand for land out in the path of growth, half an hour, 45 minutes outside of town. And they don't want 100 acres. They want 2 acres, 5 acres. So if you go out there outside of a larger city and buy yourself 100 acres or 500 acres or 1,000 acres, depending on financial ability, of course, and you split those little by little into 5-acre pieces, there's a huge demand for people that want to buy those, that want to work from home, because that's the second thing. Work from home didn't go away, and it won't go away. Yes, Amazon and other companies are forcing people to come back home, back to work, but my estimate is that about a third of American population long-term will work from home, continue to work from home. And that was like 5% before COVID. This is 50 million Americans that now work from home, ongoing. They don't need to live in the city in a small apartment and congested thing. Many of them want to live on 5 acres, half an hour outside of town. So that asset class, that kind of land, you can look for it, or you can buy 100 acres and split it. And the beautiful part of it, that the smaller lots sell for 5 times per acre than a larger lot. So you might get 100 acres for $1,000 an acre. So that's $100,000, but you might sell a 5-acre lot for $5,000 an acre. So essentially, those lots, you can 5x your money by just splitting them up.
So how difficult is it to, I know it depends on the jurisdiction you're in or the area you're in, but how, like, let's say, I don't know, you're in Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, Carolinas, you're in one of those areas, you're an hour outside of town. I mean, how difficult is it once you close on the 100 acres to start parceling that out?
Well, that depends. There's unfortunately no straight answer to that, because you gave the answer already. You said it depends on the jurisdiction and the state and the county. Like in Arizona, where I live, if it's outside of what's called active management areas, which is basically the rural areas, you automatically can split any land into up to 5 smaller pieces, as long as if each remaining piece has road access and is at least an acre in size. So if you have 100 acres, you can do you can put that into 5 20-acre parcels. You can't split it beyond that. You would actually have to go sell it to somebody else, and they split it beyond that. But if you go beyond that, you got to go to a proper subdivision process, which is a little bit more involved in this case. But then you have to do a subdivision report, and you have to do a study, and you have to have it published. It costs some money. But hey, if you're about to make $400,000, so you can probably afford spending 20 grand on some studies, then you get it approved, and now you can put the subdivision of 20 5-acre parcels in place.
Yeah.
Other states, it's a 3-month process and very little paperwork and so on. So again, in Arizona, if you find a 10-acre parcel, it's a perfect thing to do. Or 20-acre parcel, you split it into 4 5s or 5 4s, and you're done. And that takes $400, 1-page application. 6 weeks later, it's approved. In Texas, one of our coaches has recently done that. It took her 3 months, cost her a few $1,000s, but she took put a 3-acre, put a lot long enough that she, let me think about how that was. I don't know the exact size of the lot, but I knew that she could split it into 10 lots. So she bought it for $150, and under normal circumstances, she would have wholesaled it for $180, would have made $30,000. But in this case, because she was able to split it into 10 lots, and it cost a few $1,000s and took 3 months, she was able to sell each of those lots for something like $45,000, and she made the total of $300,000 in profit. And that's a fairly passive thing, because she didn't have to go out there. You didn't have to do a lot. You don't have to go mow the lawn. You don't have to build. You don't have to meet with inspectors. or with contractors, it's simply more or less a paper exercise that you do have to do a talk on the phone a little bit with the city. They give you their criteria, then you have a plan drawn up, you send it in, they approve it, and it's done.
That's incredible. So let me ask you from this again. This just is. I hope everybody listening is really getting a lot of this as well. Because I think that some things are fully passive, but some things are semi-passive. I think this is like, okay, can you make calls and do a couple things from a distance? Obviously, can happen. Who is the buyer for that? For example, for those, is it developers, or is there a way to partner with developers on it and say, I've got this, I'll subdivide it and you do this, or is it more just kind of like, hey, flipping it's the easiest way because you get to 3 months you're in and out and you've tripled your money or have hardly any money down, you've made hundreds of thousands of dollars on a situation like that?
It really depends on what kind of property you're dealing with. So if it's a single infill lot, like a street, 35 houses, one empty lot, you sell that either to the neighbor or you sell it to a local small builder that is ready to pull a permit and build a spec home on there, and then go, and that's it. That's usually fast. Now, a couple of our mastermind members, we have investor mastermind for advanced land investors. Last year has done 73 deals sold to one builder alone. So basically, the builder told them, I want this kind of properties with this kind of criteria, this kind of neighborhoods, and this kind of values, and I'll pay you 100 grand per property. And he went out and he got 73 of them for like 80K and sold them to the builder for 100K and made, $1.5 million in that process, just doing that. Amazing. That's a pretty darn passive business. The hardest part is finding the builder and building that relationship. But once you have that in place, they want to buy as many as you can. And then it becomes a fairly passive marketing effort of just making almost market value offers on infill lots. So once you go outside of the city, if you're like in that path of growth, it really depends. If you have the lower price, smaller 5-acre parcel, it's an end buyer buying those. It's not a developer, just somebody that eventually wants to build a house out there or have a place outside of town that they can go spend the weekend on and so on. Yeah. And those are those virtual workers that are looking for a place. It's also future retirees, people that haven't saved enough because prices are usually lower there. They're paying it off in monthly payments for 10 years and then putting a mobile home on there, and then they have a dignified retirement on a free and clear land. And then then we have a third asset class that we focus on, which is large properties, but a couple of hours outside of a big city. And those are usually ranches, mini ranches. And again, those are interesting for just successful people that want to have a mini ranch. And you'll be surprised how many people would love to have a 20-acre, 40-acre ranch outside of town. Yeah. And the fourth asset class is then those development areas. And those development areas are usually in that path of growth again. They're larger, they're more expensive. And the buyers of those are typically developers or builders once you're through the entitlement process.
Yeah. Jack, I really appreciate it. This has been a great conversation. There's a lot more to talk about. I know you have your book called Forever Cash. You also have the Jack Bosch show, which I'm going to be on as well. So people can check that out. But how can people learn about your book, hear about your show, and anything else that you're offering?
Yeah, the book is actually out of print, and the book is actually not a real estate book. It's more like my wealth philosophy. It's like my version of Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it's gotten good reviews, but it's currently out of print. We have to release it but I haven't updated yet. So the easiest way to get a hold of us, if you want to learn about the land investing side of things, or even that you have deals or want to partner in deals and things like that, the simplest way is to go to Land Profit Fun like having fun, Fun. When you go there, you can download a free 30-day blueprint that shows you how this works and how you can implement in your own business. And then if you want to know more, you can simply go. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram under Jack Bosch. I check my own messages. You can just send me a direct message there if you have something in particular you want to discuss, or if you have a deal that you want to partner up, or some development opportunity or something like that. I deal with those directly myself, because usually they're like more involved kind of things. But if you're interested in the more generic, like land flipping as an income source, landprofitfun.com is the place to go.
Awesome, Jack. Thanks for being here, brother. Appreciate you. Looking forward to being in your show in a bit here. And thanks again for sharing with our audience. They're super valuable today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, I love that interview. Honestly, I am really excited about it. If you, again, no personal financial advice, but if you have cash sitting around, it's not a bad strategy, and it's semi-passive. Again, there are things that are fully passive. We love the fully passive stuff. We talk a lot about it in our Mastermind the Wealth Forum, where it's how do you become more passive and really grow wealth today without taking more of your time, and fire yourself as well. In my book, I talk about that. But I think this is a way that if you have some cash, you're looking to get into something and not be super active in it, but do a little bit of work, get a really high return in a short period of time. It's a really great way to grow wealth if you know what you're doing. So, and actually, one of the things I loved from this interview is like you could take a larger tract of 10 acres or 100 acres, and when you sell it in individual acres or 5 acres, you're selling it at 5 times the profit, right? That's a huge, Warren Buffett talks about a margin of safety. That's a huge margin of safety. Obviously, you need to know what you're doing. You know that there's going to be demand, things like that. But it does show that there is opportunity if you're willing to look. So land is obviously, they say land, they're not making any more of it. So anyway, I really enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you haven't joined our investment club, I encourage you to check it out. We do have some amazing deals right now that we're working on that we're just super excited about. And we can't really share them unless you're part of our investment club. So click the link below, go to bronsonequity.com, and we'll set a call with you and learn about some of your goals and get you all set up. So anyway, thanks for taking the time to educate yourself. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Mailbox Money Show.
You've been listening to the Mailbox Money Podcast. For more free resources, articles, and videos, go to bronsonequity.com. There you can download your copy of the special report, The Single Best Investment Strategy During and After a Pandemic. None of the information shared here is an offer to buy a specific investment, and this is for educational purposes only. Consult your financial, legal, and tax professionals and use your own common sense before making any investment decisions. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time for more Mailbox Money.